A man is accused of filming himself trying to shoot and kill his parents. And wait till you hear the purported motive. To break down this shocking case, we bring on clinical psychologist Dr. Apryl Alexander to try to make sense of it all. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey there, everybody. This is a Law&Crime legal alert. Google Incognito tracked users' browsing data without their knowledge. Yep, well, Mass Tort Alliance, one of our legal sponsors, is actually helping users file for compensation due to Google users' privacy issues surrounding Google Incognito. So if you've used Google Incognito anytime since 2016, you can start your claim in less than 10 questions. Just go to incognitoclaims.com/sidebar. This is a different one, for sure. I don't know a better way to really describe it. We are in Arizona, and a 19-year-old man identified as Jeremiah Estel Blair allegedly filmed himself trying to execute his mother and father. Why? Apparently because he was upset over his upbringing. Yes. He has been charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. Attempted. After the police responded to the scene, they found the pair with gunshot wounds. They were transported to the hospital where they're reportedly, at the time of this recording, alert and stable. We're hoping they have a speedy recovery. So this is attempted murder. Blair was arrested immediately on scene, and I have to get a better understanding of what is going on here. And to do that, I want to bring in a special guest. I am joined right now by clinical psychologist Dr. Apryl Alexander. Doctor, thanks so much for coming here on Sidebar. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jesse.
Okay, so let's get into this. It is quite the story, as I mentioned. According to authorities, Blair was unarmed in the driveway of the home. He was waiting for police to arrive, where he surrendered, confessed to shooting his mother and father. Police reportedly wrote that Blair made at least one statement about this day coming, explaining that he was upset over his upbringing and was not treated as he should have been as a child. What do you make of that?
What does that mean?
I don't know. That's why I have you. That's why I have you to tell me what that means.
Such a loaded statement, right? Again, we have a long way to go in finding out exactly what that means. Is it that this person had experienced abuse by his parents? Is it something that they didn't feel that they got what they deserved in their upbringing? Is it an issue of privilege? They didn't feel that they were treated fairly or justly. We're just not sure at this point. But what we do see is this is a particularly unusual case of this attempt, that statement being made right after, and then just maybe the callousness of these actions.
Look, it's hard to make sense of this. I mean, I think that's clear. But in your experience, when you see children taking violent actions against their parents, what are some of the motivations for that? Is it built up resentment over the years? Why do you see that dynamic? I mean, it's disturbing to think about a child harming their parents, or B, a parent harming their children. But that dynamic of a child attacking their parents, in your experience, in your career, why do we usually see that?
Again, these are very, very rare circumstances. So this is why we need to kind of figure out what the motive was behind this. When we do see cases of parricide or attempted or completed murdering of parents, we often see individuals who do have adverse childhood upbringings. That could be a history of abuse. That could be a history of severe mental illness, whether it's psychotic disorders or other kind of traits related to like emerging bipolar disorder in young people. So there usually are some precipitating factors. But in some other cases, we don't get the full story. And this is just some unusual act of aggression. In this particular case, it seemed like there was some degree of planning based off the statements that were made to police right after.
Well, according to Phoenix Fox affiliate KSAZ, Blair allegedly told police he had been planning for years to kill his parents. So it makes you wonder, was he building this up over time? What stopped him from trying to do it in the past? You know, I think people listened to this and said, how could you ever harm your parents? You love your parents. You might not agree with them. You might not talk to them. But the idea of attacking your parents and hearing that, again, taking his word as true, it seems like he was thinking about this for a while. What does that tell you?
If we do take his word as true, we do have to recognize that some individuals do experience physical, sexual, or emotional abuse in their upbringing. Some of my own research has been on childhood polyvictimization, the experiences of multiple types of trauma in a person's upbringing. And when we look at individuals in the criminal legal system, they have high rates of childhood trauma, maltreatment, bullying, etc. So again, I think before we leap to some judgments, we need to be thinking about what was going
Sure,
on
sure.
potentially in the household. Again, that's not an excuse for this,
Right.
but it does give us maybe some understanding on how it came to be.
But let's say there was no abuse. Let's say he felt slighted, felt he wasn't given certain opportunities, felt that, again, I'm speculating, but was just
Yeah.
unhappy with the way that his parents raised him. If that's the case and there was no outward abuse or anything like that, does that change your analysis? Because one of the things I've spoken to medical professionals before, psychologists before, whenever they talk about, people killing or harming their loved ones or people in their family, they talk about it as a separation, right? They don't even look at the person as their parents. They look at them as an object, right?
Mm, absolutely. So, yeah, our other speculation is could it be something else? Was this a person who had two parents, was in a healthy household, had probably everything that they needed? And this is why we have some tough conversations about privilege, people feeling slighted because they didn't have enough. So you didn't get a job opportunity, so you blame someone else. You didn't get the new car from your parents, and so you act out aggressively. So, yeah, there could be some speculation that they were disappointed in certain things in their childhood upbringing and the way that they
Right.
were raised. That led to some of this. Again, not an excuse by any means, and that would
Right,
be
right.
extremely egregious. Yeah.
Well, let me lay out some of this alleged plan for everybody
Yeah.
so we understand. So reportedly, he told police he had been storing this 9mm handgun in his closet, and the initial plan was to shoot his mom and dad on Mother's Day, but decided to wait one day to, quote, set his plan in motion. And then he allegedly brings a camera downstairs, sets it up to record the killing, waited for his parents to wake up, and opened fire. Actually, allegedly told his father, who he shot first, or allegedly shot first, he knew this day was coming. So you want to talk about planning, you want to talk about premeditation. That seems to be, the hallmark of that. But the filming aspect of it,
Not even just the filming. Let's start with let me do it on Mother's Day.
right?
A day that has so much meaning for so many individuals, a day that is supposed to be celebratory. So, the selection of that date, the premeditation of having the firearm, getting access to it, keeping it, then planning. And then again, this dynamic that we are often seeing with some young people, the social media aspect. I'm going to record it. So, a lot of this brings about extremes of wanting attention to it, extremes of wanting to have this big act of vengeance in a big, bold, dramatic way.
Look, I don't know at this point what he would plan to do with that video if it was to somehow circulate on social media or get attention. Which I mean, unfortunately, we've seen cases like that before. But is it also, in your experience, people record these crimes for their own pleasure, their own benefit in a way?
For some individuals, when they record their crimes, we often see this with sexual assault or domestic violence, they will replay those videos and watch them for their own enjoyment. So, again, I would be curious to inspect the intent behind recording it. Was it for some of that? Maybe there was a situation in which he didn't get caught. What was he actually planning on doing with that video? Again, enjoying it for pleasure or sharing it with others.
Well, reportedly, he wasn't too happy to learn that his parents survived the shooting, as if this couldn't be any more chilling. I do have to ask you about a legal defense here. I'm going to go out of and basically say I don't think this is going to work. But whenever we talk about a case like this, we have to talk about the insanity defense. And the problem, I think, would be here, doctor, and correct me if it's wrong, is that Blair knew police were coming. He allegedly admitted to law enforcement that he knew what he had done was wrong. And I looked up the law of insanity out in Arizona. It says a person may be found guilty except insane if at the time of the commission of the criminal act, the person was afflicted with a mental disease or defect of such severity that the person did not know the criminal act was wrong. So I don't think that's going to work here, right?
No, we have to remember TV often skews our opinions on the insanity defense. We think it's raised often and it's successful. That is not the case. Insanity defenses are raised in less than 10% of incidents, and they are successful in less than 1% because it's a really high bar to meet that threshold. We would have to prove that he was under some degree of mental illness or some type of mental state to where he didn't understand what he was doing, which we have some evidence that he did. Again, the intent, the planning, and that he didn't know it was wrong. Most people do understand that murdering is wrong, right?
Yeah.
It would have to be some extreme circumstance in which you didn't think a murder was wrong, like a person with psychosis who maybe thought that they were trying to kill the devil,
Right.
and that their parents embodied the devil. So that's the kind of threshold we're meeting. And with some of the present evidence, it's going to be really hard to prove something like that.
Yeah, it's usually you just can't appreciate what your actions were. You couldn't conform your behavior. And that's why we see it. Because otherwise, if it was the other way, then somebody would murder and say, I was insane, right? And to be clear, right, this doesn't apply, and they say this in the Arizona statute, it doesn't include momentary, temporary conditions arising from someone pressuring you, or moral decadency, depravity, passion, or anger, jealousy, revenge. That might have reduced something from a murder charge to a manslaughter charge, but not where you're going to be found essentially not guilty by reason of insanity. So even a temporary break wouldn't be enough, or something like that.
Yes.
And to let everybody know, so Blair, he's currently being held at the Maricopa County Jail on a bond of $750,000. He's scheduled to appear in court for his preliminary hearing on May 22nd. Preliminary hearing is where you basically, the prosecution presents the evidence to suggest that there's probable cause to go forward. Where do you see this going? What do you think we can learn from this? Do you think we're going to learn more from the parents? Do you think, and look, right now it's about their recovery, but I imagine getting some understanding from them will be key here.
Absolutely. Wanting to understand more about the context, whether it's from the defendant's terms and what he is seen as his history, and from the parents. Did they see any warning signs? Was there anything going awry in their household? Was this a case where he had some type of mental illness and had access to guns and was an imminent danger? So being able to really deconstruct what exactly happened and maybe gain some lessons learned and thinking about how we can engage in more protective actions so this never happens again.
Really disturbing case. Dr. Apryl Alexander, clinical psychologist, friend of the show. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
And that is all we have for you here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.